Hello, welcome to the Edmunds CarCast podcast. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, this is a podcast we've actually been doing for years, and CarCast has been around for 17 years now. But we are new to the Edmunds YouTube channel. I'm here with Alistair Weaver and Steve Ewing from Edmunds, and we're also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. So, guys, welcome. Thanks for having me in your house.
Thank you, Matt. How do you like our new set?
This is fantastic. It looks great. This is new for all of us, by the way, as well. We're just launching on this new channel and in a studio for the first time in a long time.
I was just adjusting my pillows as well, a little bit.
Surprisingly comfy couch, gotta say.
It's nice. Yeah, it it's nice. So thanks for having us in your home here at Edmunds.
It's a mid-century modern vibe. That's what we're going for.
Well, you nailed it.
With some accessories.
Okay, so we've got a lot to go through today. And Steve, I want to talk about the trip you did recently, but those of you that are just, again, watching this and it's new, Steve, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us where you went, and then we can get into the questions and answers part of the show.
So I'm the director of editorial content here at Edmunds. So things like news, features, events, first looks, first drives, all the kind of cool newsy bits, that's what I oversee here. And so for part of that, I just spent a week in Germany, in Hamburg, up north, where I drove the new S-Class, but I got to see a couple weeks ahead of its debut, the new AMG GT four-door EV, which you may have seen online because it looks like a big neon fish.
That's actually one of Mercedes' more modest titles of recent
I was just going to say, that's the short one. That's one you could actually remember.
Well, it's not in all caps, and it doesn't, it's not an SE Performance, Magic Sky Control.
Right, competition, whatever, something active, whatever.
Right. So this, you saw it in Hamburg 2 weeks ago. This was launched in LA last night as we record the show. It's a 1,100 horsepower EV. Mm-hmm. It's going to cost over 150 grand. It's going to align against higher models of the Porsche Taycan, probably the new Jaguar when it actually arrives.
Yep, Lucid Air Sapphire.
Lucid Air Sapphire. Oh, Model S Plaid? No, that's gone. Model S
that's
Plaid
gone.
So crazy fast, crazy expensive, very odd looking. And maybe if you're listening to this on Spotify or something, we should probably describe it. Steve, could you describe it?
So it's about the size of a Porsche Taycan, maybe a little bit larger. It looks kind of like a catfish swallowed a light up ashtray in the front. Okay. And then around back, it's got this huge black gloss panel that the taillights sit in, but the shape of the big gloss panel looks like a Oldsmobile Alero from the early 2000s. The car is just hideous to look at, honestly. I've seen it in white, I've seen it in black, I've seen it in this kind of like neon tennis ball high vis jacket color, and it's
like
just
highlighter pen for me. It was
it's just it's a lot. I think that it looks better in person. If you've seen photos of it online, it's a little kind of hard to see maybe the exact size or kind of get the little details right, but it's a lot in person. And I look back at the original GTXX concept that Mercedes debuted that previewed this car. And I think the production car, the front end's a little bit better resolved to me, but the rear end is just not nearly as good looking.
Yeah.
But this car is less about the design and more about the performance.
Okay, so they're trying to do a high performance four-door. Is this now the fastest thing in their lineup aside from like an AMG 1?
Yeah.
In fact, probably in a straight line, it's going to be faster than AMG 1, I think.
I mean, the quote for the higher performance, the GT63 model is 0 to 60, and I want to say 2.2 seconds. I know that Mercedes says with 1 foot rollout, it's 2 seconds flat, 0 to 60. Okay. Which is, I mean, that's Taycan Turbo GT Air Sapphire quick.
So
what did we do in the Air Sapphire at our test track? I think that was 2.1, or was it 1.9?
I think we did two even.
2 even.
Yeah.
And you guys but you did U-Drag, so right? Did you have the Taycan Turbo GT out at the U-Drag?
Yeah. With the Air Sapphire.
With the Air Sapphire.
Yep.
Who won that race?
The Sapphire is still the fastest car that we've run at Edmunds U-Drags. The Taycan is second, followed by the Tesla Plaid. So they should be somewhere in there, depending on how. I think there's also some interesting technology about a lot of those cars. They start pulling, a lot of EVs, and then they stop pulling.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think reading the technology about the Mercedes, the idea is that it keeps pulling.
It does.
180 miles an hour or something?
Yep.
And the battery will last how long at 180 miles an hour?
Oh gosh, it's supposed to last for a really long time, but it's because there are just these new thermal characteristics for the battery. It's a new pack, new cell design. It's actually like, if you really care about battery chemistry and pack design and all that, it's a really cool, like nerdy techie deep dive into it.
Okay.
But the key takeaways for, everyone else in the world is it allows for really fast charging. Mercedes is saying that it could do 600 kilowatt charging, which is, consider you pull up to a level 3 fast charger on the US right now, and at most you'll get 350 kilowatts out of it. So
And that's if nobody else is also part there.
exactly. So this can do double that.
But it can't if the charger can't do it.
Well, right.
Right. You got to have the charger.
But in
there.
theory, it can do it.
Well, let's just pause there for a moment and acknowledge the elephant in the room. We recorded this show before Ferrari unveiled the Luce, their new EV, which has been dominating headlines for the last few days. What do we think about it? Well, we recorded a special emergency Edmunds CarCast podcast, which you can hear now on all your favourite podcast channels. So search for CarCast and find out what we think.
When did the Taycan come out?
Oh my gosh.
3 years ago?
No, longer than
Longer than that, yeah.
I want to say 5 years ago now.
Is this as long as that?
Yeah. It's
And-
been a while.
So was Mercedes already working on this, or is this really an answer to the Taycan?
Mercedes was already working on this. This has been in development for a while. I think that initially the AMG 1 was kind of supposed to be more of a halo for the brand and not so much just like a little reserve thing that people forget about sometimes. But this had always been in the works.
Yeah. The AMG 1, by the way, there's one up for auction, and it's only got a few hundred miles on it. But before it went to auction, somebody had this service called Service A, just the initial after break-in service on it. And it cost $42,000. And they started to break it down. It was like 80 hours of work. That was $30-something thousand, right? Because they were charging, I don't know, $385 an hour or something like
wild.
that. But they did break down some of the elements. It's like a $1,263 air filter and like a $671 oil filter. Like it's out there as part of the auction listing. And one of those weird things with these crazy supercars where you go, listen, if you're going to charge somebody whatever it is, Bugatti money, $2 million, wouldn't you feel, let me ask you this, would you pay $2 million and those crazy costs, or would they rather just go to you and go, pay us $2.5 million and everything is included for like 6 years? Like you don't have to do anything.
I think-
like just pay it all up front. Then you just feel
that's
better about
the way
it.
to go, only because, like to me, the difference between spending $30,000 on a new car or $35,000 on a new car is a big difference. But if you're already spending $2 million on a car, an extra $500,000 or something, it's probably not that big of a deal. Also, no one is stretching their budget to afford the Bugatti payments. So yeah, it just seems weird that you would go in and get kind of like nickeled and dimed for all these little things.
But it reminds me of something that happened at Car Week last year when I was talking to, I think we talked about it on the show back then. I was talking to Bugatti's president, and because of the tariffs, he had a whole bunch of Bugattis sitting in the UK, and it wasn't because the customers couldn't afford to pay the tariffs on a Bugatti, which could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. It was the fact that they felt that they didn't want to, or it was totally unfair, or they don't like paying tax.
That's it.
So it was like they were all sitting in the UK waiting to see what would actually happen with tariffs. So I guess now they probably paid them, and then now they're getting a refund check. Or it's fascinating. But
you may not be surprised, but the amount of people that purchase the high-end supercars that you go, oh, you don't drive them because of the collectability? No, it's because of the $40,000 brake job and the $12,000 windshield if you crack it.
Yep.
So and then they just became pieces of art to trade at auction. But you're right. If a Bugatti it was $2.5 million, you go, but for $3 million, it's all inclusive. We'll aside from putting gas in it, we'll include everything for like 5 years. By the way, that's probably a more profitable business model.
Sure.
Then I think people would drive them. But anyway,
maybe.
I'm bringing this up because I'm wondering what's going to be sort of the cost of ownership in the EV version of this. They're trying to sell this like the Taycan. Taycan, interesting car, not a big seller, not a huge success. So
not anymore. I mean, it had that initial spike where it was outselling a 911. Now, the residual values aren't good. the initial wave of people who really wanted to get them bought them. Now it's more of a struggle, and that's why we've seen Porsche move away from EVs. Yes, they've got now they've got the Cayenne EV, they've got the Cayenne Coupe EV, the Macan, but they're doing this backpedaling and trying to bring gas cars back. I mean, the good thing is Mercedes is hedged, right? So you've got, I know, Steve, we're going to come on to it in a minute. You were also there to drive the S-Class, which is still their bread and butter.
Yep.
And before we talk about the S-Class and then get onto some more kind of everyday cars, let's talk about the interior of that Mercedes, because, I mean, you've sat in it. I've only seen it in pictures. But it just looks wholly and intimidating. It's just masses of screen.
It is all, I mean, so the room that I saw it in for the first time, it was a dark room, and they had the interior with all the ambient lighting lit up, all the screens on everything else. And it was to show that, there are cool little bits of lit up piping in the doors, and the whole glass roof has kind of like the etched Falterbach AMG logo and everything on it. But you get in the car, and all this 3 of the screens, which go, pillar to pillar on the dash, all of those are lit up. Everything is backlit, and it's all reds and oranges and greens and all these things. It's just overwhelming. And, the biggest complaint I have about a lot of modern Mercedes cars is that when I'm driving them at night, the screens won't go dark enough.
Okay.
Because it's so distracting otherwise. And it's very overwhelming to sit in this car, which is supposed to be by design kind of a smaller, more coupe-like feeling inside. And then you get in and you're just bombarded by huge backlit dials and massive screens and big, the little controls on the center console, which are these like kind of like big metal tactile things. It's a lot to take in.
I drove a CLA at our test track on Monday, which was the electric version. That's the first time I've been in the interior, which has now got this Mercedes scene, which is basically just a horizontal plastic panel of screens. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of design. It's like, what's the design? It's a big horizontal thing with sort of 3 screens in it. And even in that CLA, it takes a bit of acclimatization. I find it's just a lot of screen relative to the road.
It's interesting in the GT though, because you've got the big driver's display right in front of you, and then the big 14-inch central screen actually kind of comes out and it's curved towards the driver. So then you've got the 14-inch passenger screen. So instead of it just being one big seamless screen, you've got this kind of driver's display and then this extra one. The one cool thing I will say is that on the little part of the panel that sticks out where the screen is, Mercedes has actually integrated air vents for the climate control. Yeah. So at least it's useful and it's not just this like nasty bit of black plastic that's right there. But I mean, it's a lot, and the passenger screen is standard. You can't option a car without it. All the big screens are standard. You can't do anything else to it, and that's just, unfortunately, that's the way it is. And, that's kind of the thing with the S-Class too.
I'm going to ask you about that. So the passenger screen, we're starting to see that come up in a few cars, right? Where they're trying to make either the main screen is too far away because the car is too big, or it's too sort of cockpit oriented like you're talking about. So they're giving the passenger screen. Even Ferrari does it. Do they do it in the pure song way? Yep. Or do they do it? They're going to do it in the EV? I don't know.
Yeah, they had it in the GT cars to scare the passenger, but that was just like a little strip, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was like, that just gave you the rev counter and the speed to terrify you.
But is it necessary, or is the passenger, what are they doing? They're controlling audio, air conditioning?
It pretty much works like the standard infotainment system. It doesn't, it can't really change a lot of the car's driving functions day to day. It's mostly for, you can watch YouTube, or you can browse the internet, or, you can play with the car's controls, but I don't know. In my experience, like the times where I'm riding shotgun in a car, if I want to look at something online, I just look at my phone.
Yeah, or your iPad.
Or on my iPad. I do something on my phone, but I guess, the US is not the market for those screens.
For the screens.
So it's, that it's a big thing in China more than anything. And since, China is now the largest car market in the world, Mercedes designs for that.
Okay.
But it's the same. It's kind of the same with the rear infotainment screens now. Like you can sit in the back of a Mercedes and take a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Which sounds like, the worst thing in the world to me, but everything is now available for you in the car. But the passenger screen I don't know. I've asked several of my non-car friends, like, do you think this is cool? Would you use it? And every single one of them says, yeah, it's neat, but like, what do I do with it?
It's a Samsung one. My wife hates, because obviously we're in the fortunate position to take lots of cars home. My wife hates anything with a screen in front of her. She feels like this is the one place historic. It's a bit like when they brought Wi-Fi into airplanes.
Yeah, right.
It's the one place in your life where you can escape staring at a screen. and you can, actually see nature. But I asked my kids the other day, what's their favorite car? Tesla data. Why Tesla? Got telly in the back.
Got telly.
And that's that's all.
Doesn't the 7 Series have like a big fold down
Yeah,
screen?
but
Like
we
they
don't-
haven't been in the 7 Series.
They have, but I didn't put the screen
Put
down.
the screen down, yeah. But you're right. I'm with you on this one. Like you go, it's a feature. It's like you can have a big fold down screen in the back and do a Zoom call. And my first thought is like, oh, that sounds like a terrible idea. I don't want to sit in the back and do work. Like I just want to enjoy the ride.
I guess for me, it's more just I wish it was optional. I wish you didn't have to get the passenger
Or have it
screen.
fold away like Bentley.
Sure.
See, I think now I think the Bentley's a good example that I think there might be a reaction against this, that, Rolls-Royce and Bentley have the technology, but it's the luxury comes in the elegance, simplicity, and the analog. And I'm a bit of a watch buff, and, everybody's gone back to beautiful mechanical watches, which talk to engineering, but are also simple and elegant. And I think, it'd be interesting to see what Jaguar do with their production car interior. Hopefully they're going down that path, is actually somebody to say luxury is elegance and simplicity. And yes, you need the technology, and yes, that's available if you need it, but we're not going to bombard you with a billion LED lights.
Yeah, luxury is not screens.
I mean, interesting because I'm pretty sure Bugatti is doing what you're talking about. Like you get in it and there's like nothing going on. Like there's some controls, but we don't want you to fuss with them.
Yep.
You set them up before you drive, and then you just drive the car.
Agreed.
Right? So on this AMG, this EV, what's going on in the back? It's low. Do you sit low? Is it just two like bucket seats?
It's
Where do
two
you put
bucket
your
seats.
feet?
You sit low. It's actually neat. The battery pack's design has these cutouts in the in like where the
Kinda
back
like the
seats would be.
Taycan then.
Kind of like the Taycan.
Yeah.
So there is a space for the passenger's feet to go. You sort of sit almost like upright but kind of slouching, but your feet aren't really extended out under the chair in front of you. It's easy to get in and out of. There's a decent amount of room. It's a lift back, so the whole back glass opens. There's a big trunk. So it's actually a very practical, comfortable car. It's just wild,
And who do you think? Who does Mercedes expect to buy this car? Is this the second Mercedes you have at home?
I would think so. I think this is maybe the second Mercedes you have at home. I think maybe this is the third. This is the, you spent 5 years with the Taycan and you like it, but you want to try something different, or just, you're a big fan of Mercedes. I don't think it does.
Or big fan of fish.
Or big fan of fish. I don't think it does anything different than some of the other, well, except for one thing. Well, I'll get to that in a moment. I haven't driven it yet, obviously. I assume it'll be very good. But the one thing that I think is unique about this car is a lot of EVs have the kind of fake propulsion sound.
Yeah.
And there's a couple ways you can go about it. Porsche with the Taycan, they actually amplify the sound of the motors and all the electronic wizardry inside. BMW has the whole, sounds composed by Hans Zimmer, which are futuristic and funky and weird. But with the AMG GT, Mercedes actually sampled the V8 engine noise from the outgoing AMG GTR.
Okay.
And so it doesn't sound super convincing from the outside just because it's the difference of a speaker versus an exhaust. But inside, I've got to say, I am normally not the type of person to put on the fake noises in a car.
Yeah.
I listened to it. I was pretty convinced.
I mean, we all drove the Ioniq 5N.
It's true.
Yeah.
Right? And that thing's cool.
Well, and I think
it
that
sounds
this will be the same thing
It's
where
the V8 version.
Exactly. And the AMG will have the, synthetic gear changes that the Ioniq 5N does too. And so to have that sound to go with it, I think kind of, pun intended, drives home the experience. But it sounds really good. Like, props to Mercedes for at least sampling a real engine and a real good engine.
And I think that was what, for me, appeals about the Ioniq 5N as well, is that it's an engine sound that's believable to the car. In that case, they've sampled a 2-litre 4-cylinder, I think turbo, isn't it? But that car, the size and the scale of it, is believable as a V8. So it's important to have the noise. And interestingly, we talked before about the Ford EV program, and one of the questions there, do you put fake noise in an EV truck, is, for me, it's got to sound believable.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether truck, you just simulate squeaks and rattles and a little bit rough. But
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm assuming this thing is all-wheel drive. That's how it's going to get to the numbers
It's
that
a
it is.
tri-motor setup. So one in the front, two in the back.
Okay.
And it's, at least for now, there's a GT55 and a GT63. Same battery, same setup. The 63 will just have more power.
And now we talk about the performance, but what sort of range are we looking at?
Still estimated right now, but it's looking like on the higher end, based on European estimates, around 450 to 470.
Oh, that seems like a lot.
It is. And, in our testing, it's funny, I actually ran the Edmunds EV range test in a Mercedes CLA earlier this week. Mercedes cars always overperform from the EPA numbers. So, let's say
the Taycan overperform?
Taycan does too, yes. But so let's say this thing gets an EPA rating of 400, I would realistically expect 430, 440. So we'll see. But it'll have good range. It's not, it's not a fast car that can't go far.
Yeah.
Unless you lean on the performance.
Right. Yeah. Well, they've been the Bugatti, whatever the Chiron came out, they're like, put this thing on an oval at top speed and you'll run out of gas in 4.5 minutes or something like that. You'll go through the entire tank. So, well, the battery is the same, right? You're going to run out of it. So when you guys finally get this on the test track, or knock on wood, we get to see it against the Taycan Turbo GT at the U-Drags, who do you think wins the race?
It's going to be hard to say. I think the Porsche will launch harder. I think the Mercedes will have more top end.
Yeah.
And I think also that Taycan's actually quite a handful, deliberately so. They actually, the Lucid Sapphire is actually quite easy to drive fast. The Taycan, I think they deliberately engineered to feel like a Porsche, that feel like, it has some movement in it. You've really got to manhandle it a little bit. So
they want it intimidating.
They want to feel, to feel like a Porsche. The Lucid is just a machine.
Yep.
So it'd be super interesting. Should we talk about a sensible car?
Yes, but first,
the S-Class.
S-Class.
The S-Class.
Get into S-Class a little bit here because it's new.
Well,
right?
mostly.
Well, mostly new. That's
mostly new. There's a lot that's changed about it. But to kind of go back to what we were talking about with the AMG GT, the big change for the S-Class, which I absolutely hate, is that the whole hyperscreen, super screen setup is standard. And it's not the new system that's in the GLC CLA. It's the driver's display, big infotainment screen, passenger screen, but then there's lots of kind of gloss black space between all of them.
Yeah.
And the thing I always loved about the S-Class until now was you still got a really large, vertically oriented screen that did everything you needed. But then there were exposed bits of really nice open pore wood or metal or pinstriping or all these other beautiful elements of the interior to drive home the fact that this is a very elegant, stately, it's the S-Class, it's the flagship, it's the luxury car by which all other luxury cars are defined.
Yeah.
And I think that putting the screen in it standard takes away a lot of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, the rest of the interior is beautiful, it's comfortable, the seatbelts are heated now, which is really nice. But it's just kind of lost this elegance.
Is it not a bit sweaty?
I didn't
just right here though.
Yeah,
you're just across your chest. And
I mean, if
You
you're
just have like a strip of sweat.
I mean, look, if you're driving shirtless, maybe, but I'm not. Come on.
But you were saying that their big market now is China, and China loves
it,
loves the screens, love the tech. They're very tech heavy. Yep. They feel more like.
Yep.
We'll get into this too. We feel more like beta testers. They want the technology. They want to be at the forefront of that. So that's why we have that.
Well, the Geely that we tested the other week, and you can see this on our YouTube channel too, that had a 6K, what was it, 36-inch screen, I think? Yeah. I think it was bigger than,
it was huge.
Bigger than the tellies I remember growing up, that's for sure. Yeah. And so I guess you've got to compete with that. Like if you've got an S-Class, why you can't have an S-Class with a 14-inch screen when your $25,000 Geely has got, a 6K Megatron.
Faraday Future has one on the front bumper. Yep. I don't know why, but so there's a little bit of that.
It's good for the warranty costs.
The rest of the S-Class though is just, it's as lovely as ever.
What's the powertrain? This is their flagship car.
There's a few. So you could there's a twin turbo straight six, mild hybrid, so a little bit of electric boost to kind of get you off the line. There's an updated version of the 4-liter twin turbo V8 with a mild hybrid system. And then there's a new plug-in hybrid setup where it's, instead of being the old 4-cylinder with a plug-in hybrid system, it's a 6-cylinder now. So you get about 50, 60 miles of range, and then you still have a straight 6 engine. Honestly, the V8 is the way I would go. I mean,
Yeah.
the 6-cylinder engines are both lovely, and you'd never miss the power or anything. But you get in the S580 with the V8, and you start it, and there's this. It's almost kind of like an un-S-Class like roar to it, and then it's just. I mean, it's the kind of car that delivers power so effortlessly. I remember being on an unrestricted section of Autobahn, just cruising in the fast lane, and I kept thinking the transmission was doing something because it kept like going like, and I realized I was actually just hitting this electronic speed limiter because it was just so effortlessly doing 155 miles an hour that you're like, this thing has so much more to give, and you don't even feel remotely fatigued.
But there's no V12 now. That's dead.
V12 is for the Maybach S-Class only.
Okay.
And the Guard, the armored S-Class.
That's for the real money.
Yes.
So, but you're saying you would take the 8-cylinder, but it kind of makes sense. Like here as Americans, we would probably drive the S-Class more, and we like that power. Whereas maybe in China, which is a big market, you might be driven around more in it.
Yeah, and I mean,
right?
that's
in which
why...
case, just get the most fuel efficient one.
Exactly. I mean, we've seen in the past, I think there's great examples of, you used to be able to get a 4-cylinder engine in the 7 Series and the S-Class, and it was for, the people that were mostly being driven. They didn't really care about the performance. They just wanted, the big long wheelbase sedan, and it didn't matter what was under the hood, and they would just take the 740 badge off the back.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a period in Europe where I think before the whole Dieselgate thing, I think like the biggest selling S-Class was like the S320 CDI because of all the chauffeur market. So you had these really high technology diesels that would do like 1,000 miles on a tank, and every chauffeur in every European city had one of these, and it was like 80% of sales or something.
Okay, but it smells like diesel.
Well, they were good. They had all. I mean,
That just means it smells like French fries, and French fries are good.
They were good. I'm a big diesel apologist. They were. If you've got the right treatments on them and everything else, they were, probably the most technologically advanced engines. It's crazy that they've gone.
All right, so should we shift gears a little bit and talk about something that people can afford?
I guess.
All right, what's up next?
Well, while Steve was in Germany, we talked about this on last week's show. I was in Korea driving the Kia Seltos, which is now, I can now talk about what it was like to drive. And actually, it's very nice to drive. I mean, it's not.
Moving on.
It's like
next question.
The interesting thing, the big noise is they brought in the hybrid. They brought in a hybrid, and it's like we're now a hybrid this first time. But the hybrid's a bit weird.
It's like a regular hybrid, not a plug-in hybrid.
It's a regular hybrid, but it's not the same hybrid as in the largest Sportage, so it hasn't got a turbo. So actually, I don't think it's the choice. I think actually the 1.6 turbo version will be the sweet spot of the range. Really nice, peppy little thing. Not sporty, but doesn't need to be. Yeah, I was a big fan. I think for anybody looking to trade down or looking for some good value, $25,000 to $30,000. The last Seltos was a nice little thing, but kind of flew under the radar. This is a little bit bigger, particularly inside. Looks a lot cooler. Looks like a baby Telluride. Really nice interior. I think it'll do well.
Well, and we talked about the S-Class before this. It's harder to get a $25,000 car right than it is to get a $100,000 car right, So the idea that the Seltos brings in this style from the Telluride, nice interior, I assume, drives well, and to do it for between 25 to 30K, that to me, I mean, that's a much bigger story and a much more compelling story.
And do you know what, on the screens, if I may jump in for a moment, we're talking about like this, why I don't think the screens are luxury. This Seltos has basically got a version of the screen that you find in the Telluride and everything else. And you can still watch Netflix and YouTube because it's basically an Android screen. So putting a massive screen in an S-Class, which has basically the same functionality as a $25,000 Seltos, where's the luxury in that?
Right.
Well, with the one screen, I assume you can't watch YouTube while you're driving, but with the two screen, with the passenger screen, could probably watch it while you're driving. That's the only real difference. It's like if you're sitting, like, I get it. If you're in an EV and you're sitting and you're charging your EV for 40 minutes or something, then you're watching. But I don't know. Like, I think I have YouTube in my Ford Lightning. I don't know what I'm doing with it. Like, I never use it because, I walk away when I'm charging it. And there's nobody else watching it if I'm driving it. So I know it's kind of an interesting thing. But
your passenger probably has a smartphone.
Yeah,
on their phone. They're on their phone.
I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm different. I just use my phone. For that stuff.
Okay, so but Seltos, what you were talking about. So when we see the pictures of it now, looks like a baby Telluride, but they got the proportions right. It doesn't look like a squatted, shorty version of it. Like it's done well. Like everything was sort of scaled correctly to get it right.
Yeah, the wheels, you've got to get the proportion of the wheels. I think like on the K4 Kia, it's a handsome looking car, but it's got diddy little wheels, so the proportions look kind of odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got like big headlights, big taillights, which can look strange on a small car. But you're right. I think everything from the Telluride design language really scaled down well. And so it's got this kind of like little tiny, tough, macho vibe to it that, I mean, it's both handsome, but it's got a lot of personality. And I think that extra small SUVs can often be a segment that lacks personality. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, Honda HR-V,
Yeah.
Chevrolet Trax aren't kind of...
Yeah.
Or you run the risk of going Hyundai Kona, which is a little too far in the other direction. And it's like, let's make 100 angles on this because we can, you know?
And then the only weird thing is they've got the Nero. You mentioned the Hyundai.
Yeah.
Kia's also got the Nero. So it's like the Nero is basically the same price and pretty much does the same job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I can't imagine. I was trying to think, why would you buy the Nero? And I couldn't really think of a good reason.
I don't think the Nero will last.
Okay.
I mean, it already is. I think
The-
one of the versions is gone.
The Emperor's got new clothes.
Could be.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I do. I like that.
It's classical.
okay,
Brit-
so
is it classical?
I'm gonna see. I'm
It's a
just
classical
gonna.
reference.
I'm gonna head out. So I'll see you guys later. You know.
Question for both of you, because you were driving cars in Germany, you were driving cars in Korea, and are you driving the American versions of those cars? Because we had a discussion a few months
Yeah.
ago on the podcast when you were referencing a conversation from years ago with Audi and going, why do the Audis, we like get an Audi here and like everybody hates it. It's like, yeah, because our roads are terrible and their roads there are. So when they're testing their Audi, like, oh, this thing is great, it handles great, and it's smooth. And out here, like it drives like a stiff truck with no springs on it. So what versions of the cars are you driving when you mostly go overseas for these events, for the launch events, press events?
So the Seltos, they were open about this, was obviously a Korean car, but it's actually arriving in the US in August. They have a tendency often to retune it for the US. Historically, the cars tend to be set up a bit softer in Asia than they are in the US and Europe. I hope they don't go too far with the Seltos because it didn't feel soft. You know, you don't get that slightly more roly-poly feel.
Yeah.
It felt, to be honest, I mean, it's difficult on Korean roads, which are obviously a little bit different to what they are here, but it didn't feel soft. So I hope that if they are going to play around with the shocks and the dampers and everything else, that they don't go too far.
I think it actually depends on the vehicle too. Something like the Seltos makes sense, and same with vehicles I've driven in Korea before. It's kind of the same tuning, but something like an S-Class, I mean, you're using an adaptive air suspension anyway. The cars that we drove were all German spec vehicles, but I think the German specification is probably closer to the American specification than, you know, a Korean Seltos to a US Seltos. The only thing that can be different sometimes is, for example, the 6-cylinder car that I drove for the S-Class in Germany, it'll be called S500 here, but over there it's S450. So I was driving an S450 with a slightly different tune.
Okay.
But most of the time on these programs, they're good about giving you as close to a US representative product as possible. And then the times that we don't do that, you know, we're still fortunate to go on a lot of these events early. You know, there's always the opportunity to then test it later and say, you know, here's what's changed, here's what's different, here's how this car feels, you know, in our market on our roads.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on, what's next on the list?
We had somebody in, was it Barcelona for the Volvo EX60?
Yeah, while you were in Seoul and I was in Germany, Nick Yukikian was out in Barcelona.
It sounds all very glamorous, this. We're all jet lagged to hell. And this
Yeah.
is not a typical week. This is quite an unusual
Yeah.
week. But we had like 3 people in Europe last week, I think. But
Yeah, we did.
EX60, which is
Which
Volvo's.
I saw. They did like a little launch event here.
Yeah.
And it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
The interior seemed to be great. And they talked about, you know, they're like, we made some mistakes with our software and stuff in the past, but we fixed the glitch, basically.
Yeah.
So did they?
Well, time will tell.
According to Nick, it's very good, and it's finally sort of ready for prime time. I think that, you know, we owned a Volvo EX30 in the 1-year road test fleet, and for the entire year that we had it, it was just a constant tech nightmare.
Okay.
I mean, it got to the point where like I was kind of the EX30 apologist for a long time, where I liked the way it looks, I liked driving it, I thought the size was good, but the screen was just unusable. And in that car, everything was in the screen. There wasn't even a gauge cluster.
So I drove it too a month or so ago. We talked about it as well. But yeah, again, that was one of the things that I sort of gripe about. It was like, I don't want to go to a touch screen to move my AC vents. Like, I don't need to do that kind of stuff.
The EX60 has some of that. You still control things like the air vents through the screen. The big difference is the EX60 is running a Snapdragon processor for a lot of the vehicle functions. So everything responds quicker. It's better capable to receive over-the-air updates, put them out, quickly. I guess the whole thing just feels like a more cohesive, kind of we finally finished it experience than, the EX30, the EX90. And from what I hear, it's perfectly nice to drive. It's, every bit of Volvo, nice comfy seats, cool interior design.
Volvo's always been one of those companies that I'm like, I wish they were doing better because I'm always kind of rooting for them. I think they have great design. I think their stuff looks really good. And I was like, God, I wish they, sold a few more of these because I always feel like they're changing hands or there's some kind of issue in ownership.
This might be the first Volvo in a long time that's been really competitive within its segment.
Yeah.
And I think the other interesting is you talk about technology. Well, of course, they're owned by Geely, the Chinese brand, which is, as we know, because we tested one, is actually good at this stuff. So whether they've got more hands-on in sharing some of that expertise, but if there's one thing you'd think they would be good at, it was the back end software.
I mean, honestly, you're right. So if any car company is thinking about taking one of the successful Chinese cars and taking it apart and reverse engineering it, who better than Volvo if your parent company is Geely, right? To go, listen, have their engineers going, you need to use these chips, you need to use these screens, you need to use, this is how we're getting software to talk to each other. And if we didn't mention this is an EV.
Yes.
Yeah, we should have said that.
It's a good time for EX60 to be launching. I mean, this is the car that competes with Tesla Model Y, BMW iX3, Mercedes GLC, Cadillac Lyric, I guess.
Or Optique.
Or Optic.
Yeah.
It's priced around $60,000 to start, so it's priced competitively. It looks good. I think more than 400 miles of range. We'll see when we test it. But it's finally a Volvo that doesn't feel like a lot of Volvos have always felt to me like they check, 8 out of 10 boxes. And this one finally is kind of like, I think they got everything.
But this is the car also frankly, the EX90 needed to work, but this is the car that is their heartland, like XC60, that sort of mid-size luxury SUV is where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And as Steve said, it's actually... we talk so much about the EV market in decline, but it is interesting. It is a good test case because suddenly, putting in the luxury market, there is now a lot of hot competition. The iX3 is seen as a good vehicle. This is coming in. Rivian R2, I'm not sure we mentioned in that
Rivian
list.
R2.
Tesla Model Y. There's a lot GLC EVs coming up. So there's suddenly a lot of really strong cars in that 50 to 60 grand and mark. And when you consider that the average transaction price in a new car is 50 grand. These aren't crazy money in relative terms.
Well, I also like the Volvo because it's a little bit more like conservative design. It feels a little bit more like...
It's not trying too hard.
You mentioned the BMW, and I'm sure it's going to do well, but it's got the skewed screen and the steering wheel is on sideways unless you get the optional steering wheel. And it's a little bit of that. And I just pulled up you saw it outside the Toyota BZ, and I'm like, I don't get why this... there's this gauge cluster is way up front and it's above the steering wheel. So the steering wheel has to be in your lap and you have to sit high. And I was like, it didn't need all of that.
I think that, and this is a good example of this, I think we're running into the problem that Volvos have had for a long time, which is, if someone says BMW iX3, you're like, oh, the grille, the screen, the steering wheel, all this stuff. Someone says GLC, the light up grille, the star taillights. Someone says EX60 and you're like, it's nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where Volvo cars have been for a long time, where a gas-powered XC60 does everything that a BMW X3 will do, but the X3 has more kind of polarizing, interesting things to talk about, whether it's design, features, et cetera. And so I think because of that, the Volvo just gets lost in the conversation a lot of the time. And it's not because it's not a good car. It's just sort of, it does everything fine.
But what I like about it, I don't like, and again, it's probably driven by the Chinese market, but I don't like this idea that this like overt brand thing. Like, I don't want to be somebody's billboard. Look at Mercedes got like 1 billion stars on it.
It's awful.
You know, or massive grills or this or that. And Volvo, I remember going to the original tech presentation for the XC90, which was kind of this is probably going back 15 years, and it was almost like the relaunch of Volvo after they left Ford ownership. And they stood there and they said, we don't care, in a very Swedish accent, we don't care about Nürburgring times. We don't want to be sporty. We're going to drive a nice, comfortable, stylish SUV for families. And it was also like felt up, standing up and giving them a round of applause.
Yeah, right.
And that's been the brand. And I like the understatement.
Me too.
It just says, I'm comfortable in my skin. I don't need to like tell the whole world that I've got a Mercedes. You know, I'm like you. I like the Swedish design. I'm a fan of the brand, and the seats are the best in the business.
I think if it tests well and it ends up on like your recommended list, if it's up there and if it's in that conversation of top 3 that we really like, I think that makes a difference. Because
I agree.
The design is on point, and it doesn't have to have all the wacky, weird, artistic features that some people love and some people hate. You can go, you know what? We tested all of these things, and our top 3 choices, like, the Volvo's on the list now. It's in the conversation.
From
now.
everything I've seen and heard, this will probably be the best executed Volvo in a long time. And so I'm excited to get it into the US and put it through testing and just get to see them on the road and see people's reactions to it. I think Volvo could really use this.
When does it arrive? Later this year, isn't it?
Summer.
Alistair and I have talked about this a few times on the podcast in the past. So to get your thoughts on this is so many new vehicles like this, what BMW is doing, Mercedes is doing, even that Toyota BZ, they're trying to do this thing where like, this is different and this is different. There's no buttons and this is what you got to do. And this is the future of cars. And except in trucks. In trucks, when you go on the media event, they go, we listen to you. We ask truck owners, we hear what you want. And they go, okay, you're not listening to anybody else on these other cars. You're just listening to truck owners going, you want more storage and more towing capability, and you want big buttons so you can use gloves, and you want an antenna so you can listen to AM radio. We listen to truck owners. They go, but nobody listens to any other owner on any other car, it seems like.
Well, I think it's slightly different because, I mean, trucks are very lucrative. They're very... repeat buyers are high there. And so if you can be the person, if you can get the first time truck buyer to get into the F-150, there's a pretty good chance that person is going to be an F-150 customer for the rest of their lives. And they're going to tell their friends and family to buy an F-150. And again, because the margins are so much higher on things like that, I think doing exactly what the customer wants makes more sense. But with things like a Volvo EX60, I think a lot of things in these vehicles are driven by customer feedback, but maybe not to the extent of a pickup truck. Also, keep in mind, a pickup truck by nature is kind of, there's only so much room where you can kind of think outside the box. It's got to kind of do the same things over and over again. So it has to be like, what exactly do you want so you keep buying them?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So how are we on time? Let's take a look. I think we're kind of getting there, but
feels like,
yeah,
keeping the adrenaline going.
But there's a couple other things, right? Before we wrap up,
we can talk about a truck. We could talk about a cool truck.
Oh yeah, the Rumble. What's it called? The Rumblebee.
The Ram Rumblebee.
Oh yeah,
which is not just one truck; it's a lineup of trucks. It's a whole Rumblebee lineup where basically the long and short of it is it's V8 performance trucks. What I think is super cool about it is that it combines the short cab, not the two-door cab, but the short quad cab with the short bed, which is not normally a way you can buy a Ram otherwise. You get a wide body with big flared fenders. Basically, think of it as, a Ford F-150 Raptor, Ram TRX, V8 performance truck, but for street performance.
Lowered version.
So just on the cabin, so is that the full cab? So you got all the space, but you've got a short bed?
No, you have
you've got less space.
You have less space than the full four-door. So the four-door crew cab is the big four-door.
That's the one that we own.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like the half doors in the back.
The quad cab is, it used to be what would have been the half doors, but now they're actually just real doors. They're just little. And then there's a single cab, but this is that quad
But you can't
cab.
get the full-size, like, family version.
No.
Oh, you can't at all. You can't
No.
get the crew cab
See,
version.
I don't get that because like the whole point for me of getting
Well, I mean, look-
a Ram is like you've got a living room on wheels.
I
My
mean,
kids
yeah,
love that.
but like, look, we owned a Ram. You know, we still own a Ram. That back seat is enormous. I have no reason to think that the quad cab, the shorter one, I mean, it's still a proper door. It's not like a swing out suicide door. There's still going to be plenty of room in there.
Yeah, but it's the look. I got to see what it looks like.
Oh, it looks super cool. I think it
Yeah.
works because then it's lowered. You've got these big fender flares. I think it's like 8 inches wider in the front. But there are 3 stages. There's the standard Rumblebee, which is the 5.7 Hemi V8.
Yeah.
Then you've got I think it's called the 392, where you get the 6.4 Hemi. And then there's the SRT one, which has the Hellcat engine.
Yeah.
But it's a 777 horsepower Ram that apparently Ram says will do 170 miles an hour, which sounds terrifying, and I want to do it.
That's a lot of inertia.
Yeah, but you know what? But I'm so down to try it.
I do like street trucks,
Yeah.
right? And this is interesting to me because in Ford's lineup, you want to do like an aftermarket build, you want to do a SEMA build, you go to Ford's lineup and you go, I need the 5-liter, I need the Coyote V8, I'm going to supercharge it.
Yep.
But you can only get it on the lower trim models. You can't get like a King Ranch or a Platinum, then you just get a hybrid truck. They just pulled the V8 out of those high trim models. And I don't know, maybe because they didn't want it to be $120,000, who knows?
Yeah.
But and the F-150 Lobo, cool, but it's like,
Well,
yeah,
the F-150 Lobo they bottled, didn't they?
Yeah.
They bottled that because I
I wouldn't even say it's cool.
they just don't have the features inside that people wanted.
But they don't even have the performance. I mean, the F-150 Lobo is a V8 F-150 that's slightly lowered and on kind of better tires, and that's it.
And it has a little bit of like a body kit on it, but they wanted you to. The idea was to go. Now you can get this cool kind of lowered like styled truck.
Yeah.
And when you take it to your dealer, you can do the FR 350 package, whatever it is. You get the supercharger package, and so you're saving the money by no leather
Sure.
interior, no power accessories,
But
and
I like
something
the
like
idea that-
and you spend $15,000 getting a supercharger installed.
But also the
under
Maverick
warranty.
Lobo is actually quite well executed. I quite like the Maverick
Yeah, except
Lobo.
for the tires. Maverick Lobo is a set of tires away from being great because it's on
Yeah.
all-season tires, which are garbage.
Wasn't like the BRZ and
Yeah.
they were kind of the same. Like it's
But
like
I-
one good set of tires away from.
I like the idea of it would be one thing I think if Ram had just said we're going to do this one truck and it's called the Rumblebee and here's the way it is. It's the idea that there are 3 stages of it. I think one of them has an optional track pack on it, but it's a whole family of trucks. And I like the idea that you could just get all of those right at your dealership without having to do anything to them. There's going to be lots of different customization, and because it's Ram, there's going to be all sorts of weird. There's this horrible decal package you can get on it. There's going to be all sorts of neat colors, and I'm into it. I think that Ram's kind of going to have fun with this.
Do you like the name?
Rumblebee? Well, I mean,
Can you imagine going into a bar? What are you driving? Driving a Rumblebee.
I don't know if I would have called it, but Rumblebee.
Maybe it's my accent.
I mean, Rumblebee there's some significance in the Ram lineup. It's a thing that's been around before. I don't really care about it, but this is the same company that has on the V8 trucks, it has the symbol of protest
Yeah.
badge,
They're playing into their brand right now. They flubbed for a while. They flubbed Ram. They
Look,
flubbed,
we kind of talked about this.
They need to
a little
bring
bit.
this back, and you got to put Dana White in your commercials.
Truck
and you gotta-
makers know who truck customers are, and they speak directly to those people.
Yes.
They are reversing back to their brand.
They
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
Yes,
It's like they were so successful.
Yeah.
Like the Dodge Charger is like, this is a 15-year-old vehicle. We still sell a ton of them.
Right.
So let's cancel it and make it EV.
I was going to say,
no.
if Dodge still sold the Challenger as is all these years later, it would still be, they would every year do the same thing that I always do. We're like, here's a new color. It's, a weird purple and you can get bronze wheels on it. And we put this dumb decal on it and they'd sell all of them.
They'd
Kind
sell
of
it.
like what they did with the Chrysler 300C.
If
exactly.
you gave them the engine, and you gave this wonderful V8 engine or Hellcat engine, even better. And you're right. And every year we're like, we're going to give you 7 more horsepower.
Yep.
I'm like, look, good. I'm going to buy one.
And look, the reality of the V8 Ram is, we've had some in for testing and it doesn't test as well as the straight 6 in pretty much every, empirical data point, it doesn't do as well. But I drive one and I'm like, oh yeah, I want the V8.
Yeah, and they've got a sports exhaust on
It
it.
just,
as well.
it sounds cool. It drives well. It feels good. Like, I mean, maybe this is the I'm from Detroit in me, but like, yeah, I want a V8 in my truck. The twin turbo is a perfectly lovely engine, but I want the V8.
Before we close, can I call out two other cars which are also a retreat to brand?
Yeah.
So Nissan, we've got them both on the news page, which Steve kindly edits. We got the Nissan Nismo Z, which has got a manual box.
Right.
And Jonathan, our head of testing, came back and said, this is actually a really cool thing. It's the first
fun.
Z he's really liked.
Yeah.
And then we haven't driven it yet, but BMW launched the M3 Handschalter, which is a great name for a car, much better than Rumblebee.
German for hand shift.
German for hand shift, which is $108,000 of
Okay,
worth
but
of
they
M3.
said manual transmission, rear wheel drive, and
M3.
if you spend a bunch of money and get carbon ceramic brakes, it's technically lighter. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what you need.
Titanium exhaust or whatever.
Yeah,
and
it's an M3 CS, so it's the hardcore version of the M3, but it's not all-wheel drive. It's not automatic. So it's a car that, you know, by the numbers, it will be slower than other M3s. It, you know, it's kind of like a less proficient vehicle, but it's one that's way more interesting to drive. And
Right.
75 pounds lighter, apparently. So
Only if you get the start carbon ceramic.
Is that
If you
right?
don't, I think it's like 25
But I
as
do
pounds
like
lighter.
as a manual M3 owner, I'm happy to see it.
But I do want to. I would rather walk into a bar in Michigan, so I drive the hand shelter.
Than a Rumblebee.
Not the Rumblebee. All right, so we got a 60, 65-ish Z Nismo with a manual, which is a lot of fun. And then for roughly a little under double the money, you can get the BMW. Yeah, not quite. Though. It's
Or-
110,000
Or just go buy 4 Kia Seltos.
Yeah.
Seltos? Celtis?
Oh, what would it be?
Four, yeah,
Seltoses?
four
So-
or two or three Rumblebees, two Rumblebees.
Two Rumblebees. Well,
way.
I mean, the like TRX version of the Rumblebee is going to be 80,000 and change.
I mean,
maybe
I-
more, maybe 100.
I bet that SRT one is going to be 100 at
Yeah.
least.
What
at
is it?
least.
What is a TRX?
Well, because a Raptor R is over 100. So
Yeah.
You always start off thinking trucks are 40 grand and they turn out to be 90.
Yeah.
We did that when we bought our Ram.
yeah, sure did.
Yeah. Well, I have an electric one, and that damn thing was 100.
Yeah, not anymore.
Not anymore. No.
Yep.
Yeah. All I got is big payments, and it's all right. It's fine. It's still fast.
2008 all over again.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's still fast.
Exactly.
All right. So that's it. What else is on the docket? What's coming up with you guys? More travel, more U-drags, more testing.
More testing.
Lots more testing.
Lots more testing. What else we got going on at the moment? It's a slightly quieter week than last week.
It is a quiet week.
Well,
at
your
the
wheel's
moment.
up soon. I don't even know if you could say what you're going to see, but
Oh,
you're-
I'm going on vacation.
Okay.
Kind of. I'm going to work just from another country.
And I'm not going anywhere. I'm just working
Wait, you're
hard.
not allowed to go. You're.
I'm-
There's only a certain amount of travel that the wife and kids can allow
Yeah.
in a row. You,
both professionally and domestically travel doesn't.
yeah,
go
you
down
need to
too
come
well.
back and go, honey, we're going on vacation. She's like, where are you going first? You're like,
Yeah,
I'm going to Spain. I'm going to
my
Korea.
wife is convinced, as I think most partners are in this industry, that when you go to Korea, you're actually just on vacation.
Yeah. Well, it's
not
because
a three,
they see.
It's not a 3-day trip
Yeah.
with packed schedule.
All right. On that note, we're going to wrap things up. Guys, thanks so much for watching. This is new for us on the Edmunds YouTube channel. So if you do like it, please give us some comments, give us a nice like.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. You could subscribe too. That's an option.
It's a good thing because it's a podcast. That's the idea.
Right. And if you want the podcast version, we're on Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So please let us know how you like it. We appreciate it. And until the next time, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.